Hi, my name is Jerry Butler, and I own Black Sheep Mining. We're a retail shop here in Sacramento. I oppose this bill. My family's been mining in California for about 167 years. So yes, we did come out with the Donner Party. I oppose this bill. Also, I've sold 4 suction dredges in the last 3 months. 2 of them have been to Kuruk Indian tribe members that have stated that they are still dredging their property.
Thank you.
I'm Ray Dodds. Was a small-scale miner. No, I'm just a prospector. I oppose this bill.
Ron Earl from Ione, California, and I oppose this bill based on Shannon's remarks.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Hussey, and I'm from Elk Grove, California. I've been a prospector for 30 years. I'm with the Mother Lode Gold Hounds, and I oppose this bill.
Gold Hounds.
Rick Eddy, Director for Western Mining Alliance. We oppose the language of the bill. We oppose the bill. We encourage Senator Allen to table the vote today, so give it a chance to rewrite the bill for us so we can all benefit. Thank you.
John Sibtrot, small-scale miner, American Mining Rights Association's outing coordinator. I represent many small-scale miners. I support them, and I do not support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Robert Cutting. I live in Benicia, California, and been a miner for the last few years. Basically, I got into it because I retired, and I thought, well, I can make some money dredging, that type of thing. Well, I found out that's not the case. Because there's no dredging, and that's something that all these guys are complaining about. That's where you can make money in this particular type of thing. Myself, I retired. I've worked in water and water pollution control all of my life. I hold a community college teaching credential in water and related subjects, and I can tell you the information in this particular bill is not very good. And basically, the subject of methylation and everything else needs to be totally recovered in this bill. And it just is different than what it says.
Thank you. Next. Can you give that to the sergeant?
Did you know this about California gold miners? Gold miners recover more than just gold. Why? Because we care about the environment and we want to see our waterways clean again. The legacy we leave our children and grandchildren will be one of conservation and fun. Join us.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Maybe I am the last but not least. Tom Gwynn from Rockland, California, partner in a couple of gold claims up in Sierra. Yes, I wish you would reconsider this bill, maybe reword it, but I want to thank you all for hearing us. And it's my first experience with any type of legislative process, and I have to tell you, I'm impressed that you will listen to us. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes. I'm Steve Hand, Woodland, California, small miner. I've got thousands of dollars invested in equipment that I haven't been able to use for the last several years because of all this nonsense, and poor science has put a moratorium on dredging. So I strongly oppose this bill.
Okay. Anybody else in the public that is opposed to SB 637 likes to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, we will now bring the matter back to the committee for questions of the author. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and really no questions. I just wanted to say thank you for the opposition for the, I see the fishing lure I lost 40 years ago in the McCollum River, so thank you for having that here. But I just wanted to make a comment. I really felt the passion on those who are speaking, and I hate to say opposition because I think we're all one family here in California. But I hope that, and I will support the bill today because I do think, and at the end of the day, we'll watch carefully that the Water Board will act responsibly, because the history of California is the history of mining, and we don't want to. I don't want to see anything really take away from that or restrict the benefit and the use of that, and the ability for people to be able to mine. So I hope that we can do it in a way that is not restrictive, and I think we can. And so I'll be supporting the bill, and I will make the motion if the time comes.
Senator Pavley.
Just would like Senator Allen in his close to maybe address a few of those issues, and some of it is, well, it's a little complex, and you maybe as an attorney can explain this, but there's a lawsuit going on. You can do this in your close, and how this affects or doesn't affect, or is it germane, or how does this fit into the discussion? And all this, the opposition is mostly on the State Water Board because they don't know how aggressive their regulations could be, and it's a second stop along the way, and it might be. In the meantime, there's been, it sounds like, a moratorium in getting in there through the lawsuit because people can't, they keep saying they want to get back in the water, so I assume there's something. Maybe you can just give me a little broader historical context. So right now, there's no safe place to take the mercury. Is that even relevant to the discussion of how the State Water Board will look at all this or not? It's mostly about making sure downstream runoff and any mercury contamination is not in the water supply or eventually our fish or our oceans or something. But the other, I was struck by the sincerity of the opposition. Obviously, everyone was on changing lifestyles and things like that. But is tribal lands, how do they get affected or not? Because it's a State Water Board, I assume they're not. No, or they comment on the corporate people having different standards than independent individual miners. So those are just some of the curiosities that I found in their testimony. And whenever you do your close.
Right. I guess one of the pieces of information that was raised is that the suction actually is a benefit for the removal of mercury, and we've without getting into the lake and this, but there, and then if you could address that, obviously, well, I'll let you answer.
But maybe not a benefit to fish eggs or something like that. See, I'm missing sort of the bigger story, and I remember when past legislators had carried the bill putting a moratorium or a ban on suction dredging in some of those North Coast rivers, and I think it was about the fish.
I'd be happy to help with one of those questions because you bring up a lot of great issues. When they say that a certain amount of mercury is collected by the suction dredge, you have to remember that there's many different forms of mercury. And so they are collecting liquid elemental mercury or mercury gold amalgam. That's a good thing. The mercury that goes out the back of the dredge into the river is in a form that is much more bioavailable. Okay, so that's the mercury that's very likely to be methylated. It's been disturbed, it's particulate bound, it's deoxygenated. We have scanning electron micrograph pictures of this mercury, what it looks like, and that's the mercury that can be easily used by sulfur-reducing and iron-reducing bacteria, and then that's how it gets into the terrestrial and aquatic food chains. So even though they're talking about a 2% that's not being got, that 2% is extremely important when you look at biomagnification and bioaccumulation of mercury. And on that note, with respect to the COMBI project, because I actually have been a scientist for that project for a long time, with the Nevada Irrigation District, the COMBI sediment and mercury removal project is not releasing any water back to the reservoir. It is a closed system test. The district has not purchased a dredge. They purchased a centrifuge to create a sediment treatment facility. They also have an NPDES permit. So until their NPDES permit and their 401 certification is fully completed as a result of the pilot testing, they will not be releasing a single thing back to the reservoir. So I thought I should clarify those points for you.
Yeah.
But you don't dispute the assertion that we've heard from opponents of the bill that they're actually removing 98% of the mercury in the form that it is, because it gets to your earlier testimony that when we have a turbulent rainstorm or we have our extreme weather that may come up, there would be less mercury in the river for whatever would happen with Mother Nature. I mean,
Yeah, I don't dispute that liquid elemental mercury is being captured by these physical processes. However, when miners indicate that they have many pounds of mercury, that's a Class 1 hazardous waste material, and you need a Class 1 hazardous waste permit to handle it. You can't have more than 10 pounds. Every county has a waste management disposal facility where that can be turned over. At least that's true for Nevada County, and it's free and anonymous to turn it over. Firefighters really are in danger if they go into a building with liquid elemental mercury in a glass jar sitting in it. It will explode, and volatilized mercury will kill you instantly. So we are looking at a public health concern when we hear reports of so many pounds of mercury out in the public in people's garages or basements or wherever.
So the tip for any legislator that would want to propose legislation to expedite the collection of this mercury, there'd be an amnesty element to that also, so that people would come in.
This has been done. In fact, it was done by Nevada County, and exactly, you could turn it over, no questions asked. It stopped because it was so successful. Liquid elemental mercury has to be disposed of as a Class 1 hazardous waste at Kettleman City. Very expensive process, and I believe the counties were overwhelmed with the response that they had. That doesn't mean it's not a great idea that it needs to be started again.
Okay, seeing no other questions, before we get to the consideration, Senator Allen.
I guess I just...
You get the last word.
Well, first of all, this mercury collection issue that's come up seems an acute one, and the idea that they stopped it because it's so successful is very dissatisfying, to say the least. And I think you've heard today from a lot of folks who speak to the importance of the government getting a handle on this issue. The gentleman here, Chris, shared with me a memo, I think it's in your binder, from the EPA that talked about a major take-back program that they had in 2000, and it doesn't seem as though they've done that since.
That's the program she's referring to, I believe.
Okay, all right. It does appear that at least some, if not, some of the counties have take-back programs, though. This is something that I literally, in the middle of the testimony, I turned to my staffer here and said, I'd like to go talk to the EPA. I'd like to go talk to some of these counties as well to see a little bit more about what we can do to help encourage more of the take back because of all the issues that have been raised both by the folks who've come in to testify and also the professor here. Look, I think ultimately this is about empowering the water board to examine and regulate and permit this activity. As you said, Senator, it's not the job of the Environmental Quality Committee to delve in deeply into every single chemical and toxin and scientific aspect of the specifics of suction dredge mining and its impacts. This is why we have experts in the agencies who oversee this sort of thing. And if it is true that ultimately there is a net environmental gain associated with this activity, the board will permit it. And in fact, we're going to add in language based on our conversations with the opponents that will make it explicit that the board can actually say that a permit would not even be necessary in certain cases if they felt, if it's de minimis, right? If they felt as though, if they felt that it would be appropriate. So, what has happened here, and you asked about the legal story. I mean, the Superior Court, we do have a moratorium. It's in place, but it was challenged in court. And ultimately, the court said that federal mining law preempted the department's regulations of suction dredge mining on federal land because the department couldn't legally issue permits. This was the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
So stop there. That would mean that if the federal law preempts, that would void the moratorium that was placed on state law or using the federal EPA?
Yes.
Senator Allen, is the questions to Senator Allen.
Yes, that's right. And what the Department of Fish and Wildlife has said is that they don't have, that this is the water board's responsibility. And the court itself has said that they want to see clarification in suction dredge mining laws.
This is why
we're here.
Which is, courts do that all the time, is that they ask the legislature for clarification. There's been a dispute, there's been a different interpretation, and can the legislature weigh in?
Right.
Proceed.
So this seeks to empower the water board to regulate this activity. which is a natural follow-on of the court's kind of concern about the lack of clarity. The other thing I'll say is I heard and I understand, I'm very sympathetic to the fees issue that was raised by one of the folks who commented. I will say that the board is tasked with the responsibility is for fees for permitting to only cover the costs of the program. The rules are very strict about this. Otherwise, we'd be having taxpayers subsidize this activity. So there are rules that limit the board's ability to charge too much in fees, and those rules are in place. They're rules that I think most people here on the committee are familiar with. It's something I'm sympathetic to, but it's not as though there's some unlimited power of these agencies to just smack on whatever fee they want to fund the permitting process. So this simply seeks to address the concerns raised by the court by empowering the water board to oversee what is ultimately a water quality issue. I think that the sort of evidence that has been brought before us today deserves to be heard before the panel of experts who examine water quality, who can really sit there, delve into this, look at the issues, and craft a permitting procedure that will truly take into account the environmental weighing test that we're looking at today. We're hearing that, yes, there's mercury being extracted as part of the process. We're also hearing that there's other mercury that's being agitated and redistributed into the river as part of the process. And we've also heard about small streams or rivers that don't have any mercury at all, which presumably the water board would very much take into account and permit because there would be there wouldn't be the same sort of environmental concerns in those rivers than there are in the ones where there is a high presence of mercury in the ground. So this is, but ultimately this is about handing over to the water quality experts a process and a mechanism for examining this sort of debate, weighing those issues, and then permitting or not, or even saying, look, you don't even need a permit here for those rivers because the environmental impacts are de minimis. That's what this bill seeks to do.
Okay. That's it.
So, but I am committed to continuing, whether it's me personally or my staff. I hope that folks understand that staff, and I think everyone on the panel very much understands that staff are an integral part of the development of the bills. I appreciate the concerns that have been raised. I know that the panel does as well. I want this to be about environmental protection. I don't think this is a ban. This is ultimately up to an agency like the Water Board to really determine and look at the environmental balances in play here. And that's why I respectfully ask for an aye vote, but I am committed to continuing a dialogue with the opponents on this.
I don't know if many of the people who testified against they talked about the challenges that the language has, and it seems as though part of the testimony was that there's all these different rivers and all these different levels that when the bill contains language that there's a prohibition on any dredging if the board would find that some discharges may cause a violation of Port of Cologne or federal law, there may be some attention to specificity on that because not all violations are the same violations. So I don't know what other non-gold, non-mercury elements that may be in here that may raise the concern of the State Water Board that you want it to be consistent, but it seems like it's a exact prohibition if you find any of the discharge, and there just may be something there with the language that you can work on.
I'd love to clarify. The Port of Cologne Water Quality Act has sediment as a contaminant of concern in addition to mercury. A lot of the testimony that you've been talking or hearing from today has been about mercury, and yes, the dredges do release mercury that above the Clean Water Act level that is acceptable, in fact, in two different forms, both total and methyl mercury. However, sediment is another regulatory criteria that is used and would be in streams where there is no mercury, as is turbidity as a measurement of impact. So for the Combi Reservoir project, the turbidity of the water that would be released back to the reservoir cannot exceed 5 NTUs. We have not yet been able to reach that low level. even after centrifuging that sediment and adding polymers to it and having 2 series of closed settling tanks to try and treat this slurry that's created as a result of the dredging that's happening out in the reservoir, we still have not been able to reach that level on just the turbidity or sediment level. So this is a water quality issue for all streams and rivers, not just streams and rivers that are impacted with mercury.
May I speak to that?
Physician, go ahead, please.
The one issue with that particular statement is that the sediments that are removed from within a river are considered indigenous sediments. You can't have a pollutant that you take out of something and drop back into it. When you take something from a land-based area and add that, that then becomes the sediment, which is a pollutant.
This is what the water board ought to kind of examine. I mean, just that sort of argument, this sort of argument, the arguments made about all the trash that's pulled out. This is all good stuff, right? I think we can all agree, and this is the kind of thing that the water board would look at and weigh. I mean, this is their job. This is their job ultimately. They're looking at water quality. They're looking at all the impacts, and I think it would be. I think the folks have a good case to be made about some of the positive environmental impacts associated with the mining, and this is what the board would take into account, and it's what we task them with.
Okay, we have, I believe there was a motion by Senator Hill some time ago. There was a motion, so that the members of the assembled here today knows that this is the motion, if approved, is to do pass to the Appropriations Committee. So this will be the third committee that it'll go to for evaluation of the economic impact that this bill would have. So, Assistant, please call the roll.
Item 23, SB 637 by Senator Allen. The motion is due pass as amended and refer to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wykowski?
Aye.
Wykowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Jackson? Aye. Jackson, aye. Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye.
Okay. The measure has 5 votes. We'll keep the roll open for the others. Thank you very much. We will pause.
Thank you. And please give me a call or email.
We'll pause for a couple of minutes to let people
in the binder there, I believe I
leave,
did.
and then go to Mr. Allen's next bill, since it's